Hello, this is part two of our Challenging Conversations presentation. At this point, we are going to start with our discussion on the techniques used in our role plays, and then move on to issues pertaining to diversity and oppression, and then have a discussion around the group stage we reached together. So the first thing we're going to do is discuss technique one.
Yep. So in the first role play, we use nonviolent communication. We learned through our text that it's important to focus on four different areas. The first being an observation. Second is your feelings regarding the observation, so the problem. Um, your needs, or in this case, the unmet needs resulting from the conflict, and most importantly, your request. So what does, in our situation, what does one spouse request of the other in order to work toward a resolution? I think both Janice and Sandra did a really good job highlighting all of those four areas. I'm going to send it over first to Janice so you can talk about your 4 points.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, in our conflict scenario, Sandra and I played the couple that was having a disagreement in regards to her constantly calling me and me wanting to go out. So my observation was when I saw that Sandra kept calling me when I was out, it made me feel resentful because I had an unmet need of friendship. And my request to her was to ask her, would she be willing to let me go out without her calling me? So, Sandra, you
Yeah.
also had your.
So my observation during the conflict was that Janice was going out way too much and was never home. And result of that was me feeling upset and lonely and just kind of doing all of the household things alone. So my need was for companionship. And I requested that she make a scheduled time where she goes out and enjoys that time away with friends.
So this intervention didn't come super easy for us. We changed our conflict a few times, and we definitely changed the way that we dealt with each step for each spouse. But I think in the end, we definitely learned a lot about how to utilize this in a therapeutic setting. So,
Yeah.
I agree.
all right, technique number two.
Yes, on the second role play, we use Common Ground. The great thing with Common Ground is that, pertaining to the scenario where kind of the issue was identified, where with Janice going out and then Sandra and Janice having different opinions regarding that. What's nice about Common Ground is that when there's people on other sides of of an issue and kind of get to a point where talking's happening, but not so much back and forth communication where there's listening and understanding. This brings listening. It returns it back to a place where conversation can continue. And so when we do this, we review the ground rules. But the main purpose is that each person gets a chance to communicate their thoughts and their feelings on the topic. And then the other person listens to paraphrase back, and it's important to not build an argument or response. That way, when you're listening, you're really fully listening to understand and not being distracted by figuring out what you're going to say in response to it. And I think both Janice and Sandra did well. Janice did have some moments where she spoke up, kind of interrupted when Sandra was having her time, and that's kind of where the role of the therapist has to step in and facilitate the group back to those ground rules. So, Janice and Sandra, how did you think it went?
Yeah, I thought that for our conflict scenario, you did a great job of putting the rules in place and allowing both of us to express ourselves. And in a conflict where we weren't understanding or hearing each other, it allowed for us to express ourselves and then kind of paraphrase what one another was saying so that we could kind of, actively listen and understand where each of us were with our feelings and our needs. So I thought it was helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the thing about common ground that's nice is this is a technique that you could utilize so easy in your family setting, in a work group. It doesn't really require a whole lot of like formal preparation, and it's just a really great way for everyone's voice to be heard. So I think after learning about common ground, I think that it's something that we do and can do better in our lives all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it flows very well into, an argument or conversation when you have someone facilitating it too. So,
Agreed.
Yep.
All right.
So next, we're going to discuss some diversity and oppression issues. And so the first thing that we discussed is kind of the power dynamic between Janice and Sandra in the role plays. And I think this was kind of seen in the nonverbal communication. I mean, both of them were very direct. Janice was pretty direct with her statements. But if you look at the nonverbal communication, Janice was really direct and staring down and with that eye contact, as opposed to where Sandra was kind of, when it was time for her to speak, she was kind of looking away, looking down. It kind of shows the power dynamic in that situation. And this could pertain to a number of things, including different expectations around values and roles, such as within family structure. So depending on the culture that was brought up in the household values, I mean, it could be a learned behavior of how they feel their roles are in that relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then, so as far as diversity and oppression within minority groups, we kind of showed in our scenario how, it can be resistant for some minority groups due to racism and mistreatment. And definitely in my role, I was resistant to the dialogue and the therapeutic process at first, and then I became open in the end and willing to participate in the intervention. So.
Yeah, so and then just back to what Chris was saying about the power dynamic in both examples when Janice was speaking and kind of overpowering me in the conversation when I was looking down. It just kind of went back to the whole power dynamic of me not feeling like I could communicate freely.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, I mean, the real issue with that in therapy is that if there is that dynamic where one person feels like they're not able to voice themselves, it kind of removes them from that process and trying to be able to voice themselves and build themselves up.
And lastly, we discussed how it might feel if one spouse saw value in therapy while the other was resistant to the process. So in this situation, Sandra had initiated a therapeutic intervention, and Janice was really resistant to it. She spoke a little bit ago about, reasons why that may be culturally, but in this case, it really was contributing to the conflict between the two of them. You had one spouse that was really bought into therapy and another one that really just wasn't super interested in participating in the beginning. So that was difficult as well. All right. Group stage.
Yep. And so, yeah, as a group stage, we kind of all agreed that we reached the working community stage. How's everybody feel about that?
Agreed.
Yep.
Agree. Yeah, I felt very comfortable expressing my opinions and my suggestions freely in the group with mutual respect, especially all the way at the end of this project. And then I felt like we were able to feed off of each other's energy and add in some humor into our dynamic. So it was really nice to see that play out in our group.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Janice. Reflecting back to the first week to where we are now, I can definitely see the difference there. We became a lot more comfortable with each other. There's that hesitation. It's a new program, new group of people. We're meeting virtually. I think by the end of it, we're a lot more comfortable with each other. Had a great understanding of how each of us work and our personalities and what we bring to the group. And we just, even though the work is stressful, that we still had a lot of fun and we're able to help relieve that, like reduce that anxiety for each other. It's like we took this presentation very seriously, but we didn't take ourselves too seriously. And by the end of it, we really enjoyed our time.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I think each one of us came to the table every week, prepared for dialogue, ready to share different perspectives, and we all contributed to the work equally. So, it's always kind of nerve-wracking to start in a group, especially with folks you don't know very well. Are you going to be stuck doing a lot of the work? Is it going to be evenly divided? And I really think that we all contributed evenly. It made just for a really great experience. So I enjoyed my time with the group for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
So I agree with everybody, and I think that we're all looking forward to continuing our education together. We recently found out that we're going to be in the same courses going
Mhm.
forward, so we're all excited.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're in this
excited.
together.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Well, we just want to say thank you for watching our presentation. We hope you enjoyed it because we did enjoy making our presentation for you.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.